This is when I need the joke. Or the whatever, anecdote.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We're going to give it just a couple minutes here at the beginning. Hello, everyone, to let some people join, and we'll be kicking off shortly. Thanks for joining. Give it one more minute and we'll kick it off at 10:02. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for taking the time out this morning after a long holiday weekend to join us. We're here today to talk about data-driven TV targeting and using data to reach the right audiences through addressable TV. So thank you for joining. Want to remind everyone participating that we are taking questions that we'll address at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to use the question functionality and ask questions as we go along. So today our panel, I'm Ocean Fine. I work at Foursquare. I head up a team of folks that focus on using our data across our targeting attribution products. We're really excited this year how it will be used in a more advanced way for TV, and we're here to talk about that today. Got a great panel. I will be your host, but we have two folks joining us with a wealth of not only TV, but a lot of experience in digital advertising, rich history in working with data across all channels, including now TV. And I'll let Christine and Meredith introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll go first and then turn it to you, Meredith.
Perfect.
So I'm Christine Gramier. I lead our buy-side efforts at LiveRamp for all things related to TV. So if you know LiveRamp, you know that can mean bringing data to the ecosystem for targeting, first-party data, third-party data of all sorts, and then also measurement. And measurement takes shape sometimes in just moving exposure data around, but we also have our Data Plus Map platform that we represent and sell to brands as well. I've been measuring media and advertising driving sales across screens for far too long. And so I'm really excited to share the stage with these ladies today and give you some of our best knowledge.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. Nice to be able to speak to you today. I'm Meredith Miller, and I oversee marketing at Ampersand. Ampersand, if you aren't familiar, hopefully you are, is actually a 30-plus-year-old company, and we represent the largest source of TV across the US. And we help advertisers transact on that inventory, taking an audience-first approach. So we also have the largest set of set-top box insights from nearly 42 million households that allow advertisers to take a true audience-first approach, moving beyond age and gender. And then, of course, providing the measurement that is needed on the back end that we can tie to the audiences that our advertisers are looking to reach. We do this through our AND platform, so bringing not just the inventory and the insights, but also the needed automation and simplicity that the buy side is looking for. I come actually from the true digital world. I spent time in programmatic on both the desktop and mobile sides, and led our data partnerships efforts at Twitter and MoPub previous life. So bringing my digital knowledge, as Ocean mentioned, to the TV world. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine and Meredith. Let's dig right in. So we wanted to start off talking about some big trends that we've seen in advanced TV this year and in TV in general. So what a year, this year, last year, right? The TV landscape has definitely shifted. I mean, the world has shifted. Our behaviors in the world have shifted. Certainly here at Foursquare, we've paid attention to that, looking at our location data, following very closely how behavior shifted in 2020. In the real world, at the beginning of the year, we saw a lot of shifts going into the start of the pandemic. Across certain categories, we followed it throughout the year and still do across certain categories. We saw over 70% drop. Places like related to travel, like airports and those types of things. But we also, saw shifting behaviors in visitation for certain categories, such as big box and value stores actually increase and bounce back. And, we're following those behaviors, but certainly for TV, it's just been a shifting world. Speaking for myself, I used to watch no TV. Now at the end of the day, my behavior shift from my home office to the living room, where I say, what am I going to watch for a couple hours just for a break? Can you guys talk about some of the trends that you guys have been seeing and following on TV last year going into this year?
Sure, I can take this one to start. So I think most notably, and I'm not going to say anything that we haven't already talked about, but it's important, I think, to state it up front to set the stage, was the shift in how consumers were accessing content. This isn't new, right? We've been talking about this for years. The choice is now in the hands of the consumer in terms of when they choose to watch and what they choose to watch and where they choose to watch it. This shift has been happening, but we saw this truly accelerated in 2020 with the impact from the pandemic, with people watching more TV during that period of time than they ever have. Now, as we watched the increase in viewing rise over the first few months of the pandemic, we did expect it to stabilize and kind of come back to normal levels. And in fact, we have seen that. And even though there is still more opportunity to consume TV content today while we continue to ride this out, we should expect to see the levels continue to stabilize and kind of level off. What we don't expect to see change, though, is, again, how they're accessing content and the impact that this has on the advertiser, which is needing to be flexible, nimble, and know how to take a true multi-screen approach, because it's now not just about what they're watching, it's about where on all of these different touch points you can actually reach that audience as an advertiser. So for us, it's really been about the how they're watching and the when they're watching, not as much about how much. Christine, I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think I might answer the question just slightly differently, which is like the brands and agencies' reaction to the consumer shift, right? So the consumer shift we're all experiencing as individuals, and as Meredith said, like they can see it in a lot of the data that they work with across their footprint. When we are talking to brands and agencies, the quick shift that needed to be made was obviously they were dealing with this pressure of budget cutting for a good part of the middle of last year, and then totally new platforms and totally new ways of thinking about the opportunities in front of them to get to consumers with video. This line is one that I felt like I heard advertisers saying implicitly, which is like OTT is the new Prime. Everybody used to try to decide if they could afford Prime CPMs into their TV media plans and justify the reach that they were going to get out of a Prime impression or a Prime spot. And I saw them like quickly pivoting to OTT and say, oh my goodness, like I have to pay a premium for it, but I don't know what I'm really getting for it. How do I equivalize? So I thought like a lot of this kind of treating OTT like it was Prime and trying to sort out how to invest in it. And the ask was of, and you'll see me on, I have a couple of case study slides here in a couple of minutes. The ask was often of from big strategic brands making lots of investment across video. How do I bring data to TV when I really just thought about TV as reach? So, I want to reach as many households as possible. I want to drive awareness. And historically, data didn't have to be part of that conversation all that much. Maybe they did a little indexing for understanding audience patterns across different networks and day parts in linear. But now you really had to use data to get to all households because it doesn't just fall out of a big linear plan anymore. And then finally, I mean, we all lived this in our own lives. I'm praying my children are going to go back to school soon. Flexibility is key, right? So flexibility at home, flexibility at work, flexibility in contracts between the buy side and the sell side. If you're listening to, to all of the conversation that's happening about preparing for upfront, flexibility is a theme we just keep hearing. Those are some of my big findings, I think, from the year, Ocean.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I thought it was really interesting to hear about how at the new fronts, it's the focus on how do you buy video in a seamless way across everything. So that to me is really exciting. And then how we think about like how advanced uses of data. Certainly there's been a lot of data used on TV, but how do we advance that and use all of the data that marketers have at their fingertips now on these new channels outside of linear, which I think is really exciting. In fact, I think in the Trade Desk TV study that just went out, which was great, it cited about like over 40% of consumers say that they prefer to get ads that are tailored to them, especially on TV, right? So advanced use of data is the way to do that. All right. So, Christine, you mentioned some case studies. I know you have one right now. Should we dig in?
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of like to play on that ask of brands that are coming to these questions. The size of the problem is real. So, if you're a brand and an agency who really hasn't started to bring data to your CTV and linear video plans and execution, you find yourself with a growing problem. And this is some data across a set of brands where a substantial amount of your inventory, so 75+% of your impressions, will end up falling to 25 to 30% of households. And this just is the underlying pattern that can happen because heavy video consumers can be heavy video consumers across many channels. And then you've also got some dynamics in there of people really shifting where they're viewing. It's very hard to keep up with them. And this is an example right off the Data Plus Math platform that I just wanted to bring to life for everybody sitting out there thinking maybe, I've ticked the box because I took a chunk of my linear and I dropped it into a Trade Desk buy. The data and the opportunity to really make that smarter, like you're on the right track, but the data and the opportunity to make that smarter really is what we see as an opportunity. So this example on the screen, we've split the linear TV viewing population into those heavies, mediums, and lights, and just the natural fallout to split it into groups of into thirds created it such that heavy group is watching about 10 hours a week of linear TV, and that light group is watching about 2 hours a week of TV. So that's sort of how this fell out of our data set. And you can see that heavy group was getting over 1 billion of the impressions, average frequency. So that's like, there's obviously a distribution, but average frequency in this plan, it's a big plan, was 42 over this period. This is a quarter. And then those light homes, they were only getting about 150 million, and they had an average frequency of 9. And so this is just revealing that, like, this brand, as an example, they have a strategic audience. They have a group of homes they know are most important to them, and they slice across this heavy, medium, light pretty evenly. And so they really have to make an effort to go find those homes that are strategic to them and not on linear. And then quite honestly, they don't want to waste their CTV impressions that are often coming at a price premium. Even their addressable impressions, they don't want to waste them on homes that they already know are seeing plenty in linear. So this is an example of how this is unfolding in real life right now. Ocean?
And if I can I add on to that quickly?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I loved that case study and kind of that setup is it demonstrates that the data is there, it's available. And one of the ways that we're working with our clients at Ampersand as well, and there's so much synergy between our two organizations, is taking the data that shows just this: who was underexposed, who was unexposed, at what what frequency levels. And if we're talking about this audience first approach and actually living and breathing that as a client, we're able to help create a segment of that specific audience segment that the client did not reach at the exposure, at the frequency level that they were intending to, and actually find those people addressably, or perhaps at the market level where they did not have as much delivery as they intended to. So this incremental reach approach and incremental reach strategy is working. Our clients are using it today, and it just shows kind of the power of, you were just talking, Christine, about how primarily in this shifting landscape that we're all living in right now, how important it is to bring data to the table. And if you're not, as a brand, you need to start leaning in now. This is happening today, and it's possible. You're able to use these insights to actually improve the overall results of your campaign, whether you're a national or local buyer. So it's great, and we're seeing a lot of good success coming out of it, even in just kind of the early days.
Which transitions us to our next topic, which is the new definition of TV, right? So thinking of TV as all of these channels, it is cross-screen. And I guess my main question for you on that is how close are we? Are all buyers thinking this way yet? What are you guys seeing in the market?
You want me to start? So we spent a lot of time. Thinking through this and talking about this as a company last year, but also with our MVPD partners on what this definition of TV should be, given the fact that it's become siloed and it's complex with respect to the different distribution channels that content is delivered to consumers. And then, of course, as we just mentioned, now the array of choices that consumers have to access that content. And I personally, I'll speak for myself, believe that we've overcomplicated the conversation with the buy side. We focused initially on how the content is being delivered, and we have a slew of acronyms for the various types of advanced TV: OTT, CTV, ATV, there's digital use, there's linear, addressable. That's a lot. And what it comes down to, though, is the fact that the consumer is simply just trying to consume content that they want to watch, and they don't care as much about whether it's VOD or it's via OTT. They just care that it's TV. So we really try to live and breathe this mantra at Ampersand with our partners, which is it's all TV. I think when you simplify it to, if we're going to give a definition to this, a new definition to TV, it is that it's advanced. We're able to actually do things with data.
I'll jump in there. It looks like maybe Meredith's screen is freezing a little bit, so I'll roll with the rest of. Sorry, Meredith, we lost you for just a second.
I lost you guys too. I was.
That's okay. It's
Go ahead
okay.
and jump in.
I was just going to jump in and say, like, generally at LiveRamp, we are seeing much the same thing, that the actual way that the buy is executed is probably the thing that as an industry we can do more to work on, because the consumer is moving across the screens very quickly and very seamlessly. Honestly, the advertisers are more or less ready to invest wherever they can get the impressions. And so we have this middle part, which is the agencies, the metrics, and the actual technology that we probably have work to do on.
Great. And so let's talk about reaching the right audiences through addressable TV. I mean, I think that point, brings us right to why use data and why it's so important to use data across the TV channels, all of those different channels we just talked about. So of course, as a data company, Foursquare, we're thinking about what a great opportunity it is this year to use more advanced data types, like all of our audiences across TV, based off of real world behavior. I'm curious, we talked a little bit about this in prep for this call, just talking about what types of data do we see customers using today, and where do we think we can really lean in more? We know that advertisers can certainly benefit from using other types of data, in addition to the more traditional types that like demo and gender that we're used to using on linear. What are you guys seeing today with your customers? Where are they really leaning in, and where are their opportunities?
Yeah, I can start on this one, Meredith, and then turn it to you. So we see a tendency for brands to take sometimes those linear dollars and just want to stay in the zone of age and genders. They're kind of coming off a linear buy that was age and gender, so they just want to get the CTV impressions on a 2+ or adults 18 to 54. And we really encourage them to at least consider a part of the buy with some targeting on top of it, so that they can start to differentiate and learn. And for us at LiveRamp, we work with all sorts of different data types, Foursquare being one that's important and valuable in our mix. So we see brands trying almost anything. I think that the one thing we often try to coach them on is, if you're gonna try a data strategy, do a little bit of the homework. Talk to the actual data supplier. Maybe don't just say, I want some geolocation data. Let's land it on my plan. Know the data that you're going out and you're going to use, and then really think about some consistency. So think about some consistency across your partners, so then it also helps you measure it to evaluate if you've really reached some of the people you want. That's kind of what we hear when it comes to data and TV.
Yeah, and I think we're hearing a lot of the same. The one thing I'll add is, when it comes to the data that the client wants to use, it is just that. What data do they want to use? So for us, it's about making sure they have access to any third-party source that they trust, to your point, that they work with. They know how those audiences are built, the data that goes into it, or if they have their own first-party data that they feel more comfortable using for various reasons, or they just have a more precise definition of the audience that they want to reach. It's really about putting that control in the hands of the advertisers, and that's a lot of what we're hearing as we're working with our clients who, to be frank, are newer as TV buyers, working with this type of data, moving beyond age and gender. There is still a lot of education and conversation and consultation that's happening with our clients to get them comfortable building plans that are using a set of data that they aren't used to using with TV. So as a part of bringing them along that journey, it is very much about making sure they have access to whatever the segment is, whatever the data source is that is going to work for them, and making that access simple. And that's some of the stuff that we're working on together, which we're also very excited about, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, and I love the advice to work with your data providers because they are the experts with the data. Just really quickly on that point, we won't spend too much time here, but did want to talk about it quite honestly, an early on case study. So this was a case study from last year of an advertiser really leaning into using advanced data across a CTV buy. They used Foursquare data on the trade desk, so they leaned in some of their first party data. This was a national arts and crafts retailer. And they were trying to drive new customers. They did lean into their first party data to understand how they could drive up more visitation from their existing customers, but really wanted to use insights to learn how to drive new customers. So they worked with Foursquare data. We took a look, we'll talk more about how we use the data first to try and, really do an audience first approach. We took a look at their first party data, where we saw their customers that were visiting their stores going, what kind of insights could we learn about visitation history. We found some really interesting things, which was a lot of visitation on the weekends to this retailer, a lot of family visitation. And we noticed that there was a high likelihood of people going to this store, also going to toy stores and stores on the weekend to get activities and things to do with their kids. So it was around the time also where unfortunately there was a big toy retailer, Toys R Us, sunsetting a lot of stores, and it was going through different phases. So we worked with this advertiser to create a highly custom audience that they ran on their CTV buy across the trade desk to target people that had a long location history of visiting that store because they knew that they would be looking for new things to do with those stores closing and convert them over to find new customers. So I think it was just a great example of using advanced data pretty early on the in the CTV ecosystem. Really excited to talk about how brands, this is the first approach, right, moving forward across that TV landscape that we talked about. So I'd love to dig in now a little bit. We have a few more minutes before we do some Q&A. So how do we make this happen, right? We've talked about high level, some trends that we're seeing, what we're excited about. But Christine and Meredith, like you both explained, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to do. What's the workflow? How do we help our customers?
Yeah, I think this is one of the, like I talked about, the in-between space. They're like, brands are looking to get consumers wherever they are, and consumers are going everywhere. But how do we fix this middle piece, which is how to really buy and execute seamlessly? I'm really transparent with brands and agencies right now. There is no easy button. If someone tells you it's an easy button, it's probably because they're trying to sell something that is that's at least an option. But really, it's very hard to have an easy button that spans all of the great inventory types, all of the great data types, and then helps you do this in a streamlined way. So we have found that it's really about rolling up your sleeves. I don't mind it. I like to get in there, but like as a company playing in this space, whether you're a brand, an agency, on the sell side, everything is really about right now getting in and rolling up your sleeves. My team, we try to have a ton of empathy for everybody involved because everybody is generally trying to get this to work more seamlessly. But we really believe that partnership is an important part of what's going to make this happen. So empathy, rolling up our sleeves, and then really getting in there. So in my team, we've built a really an agency engagement program. Ampersand, I'll let Meredith talk a little bit more about what they're doing also, but really making sure we're spending time with the teams in the agencies, account teams, buyers, planners, who are trying to sort this out, and oftentimes you're being pushed and asked by their innovative advertisers to get it done. On the sell side, we have so many partners on the sell side that are asking for using different parts of the LiveRamp graph, of the LiveRamp technology to help them be better. I'll speak just a little bit about our partnership with Ampersand. I'll let Meredith extend there. So at LiveRamp, we've really been trying to make sure we bring the inventory sources as close to the brands and the data as possible. And in the way we do that is we really we have our platforms that allow you to understand and discover audiences, see match counts, and really understand what the sell side has to offer. And Meredith, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about how our partnership is maybe even going to the next level of alignment.
Yeah, so I won't give it all away yet, but what I think is good for everyone listening today to know is there's been a lot of close work with our product teams and our data and research teams over the past couple months to make it, going back to the simplicity comment earlier, to make it really easy for brands to work with the data that they need to work with, that they want to work with, and simply transact that. As Christine just mentioned, bringing the inventory source and the data sources as close together. There's some exciting work that's on the horizon, or that's been done, but that will be available on the horizon soon between our two companies. Then this also touches on, I'll just go into a little bit more on the workflow topic, which I completely, and I think we as an organization completely agree with you, Christine. Like that's where a lot of the work still is needed, and everyone involved in it in the space, I think, is working furiously to make that happen, or to get us to that desired end state. For us, it's very much also been about putting the controls in the hands of our clients. And so we all, well, I shouldn't say we all, anyone that is familiar with digital and how digital, traditional digital buyers transact, it's in a platform. It's in a UI that's simple and easy to use. And you talk about an easy button. There absolutely is an easy button if you're in any traditional digital buying platform. And that's what that's what we're building. And that's what we've actually been beta testing with a handful of our clients this year, is a self-serve version of our and platform that allows the client to create and build an audience-based plan, and then receive the measurement and reporting of that campaign on the back end directly within a UI. For a TV buyer, this is something that they've not had access to date. So while there is still work to be done, a lot of what I think is important to also remind everyone is that a lot of progress has been made, and the notion of continuing to roll up our sleeves together and work with our clients is incredibly important still. But we're getting closer and closer to this realm of possibility, that the simplicity and the simplicity of buying TV using data is here, and the kind of execution of it and our true desired end state is not far away. I'll stop there.
I love that. I love those points, Christine and Meredith. It's like with the tipping point that we saw at, with TV last year going into this year. Now it's like, how do we get that easy button and make it really easy and invest in these platforms and processes and ways to do it seamlessly. I think that also just speaks to the audience first approach, which is where we certainly, Factual, and you guys are saying the same thing, want to go with all of our customers this year in that Trade Desk TV report that I mentioned earlier on that was released on Friday. I think they said that about half of the respondents that they talked to on TV said that they were planning on taking an audience first approach this year to planning. That was one of the big shifts that they were going to see, which is great. And what does that mean for us as we think about how we help our clients? That means enabling them with easy ways to access our data, like you said, in the platform, so they can target their customers one-to-one, do very, highly custom, more niche audiences, use those platforms and streaming services to reach the audiences that are there, the cord cutters and the millennials. And it's that report also showed, and we know it's not just those important, highly important audiences who are in the control seat now with their wallets, but even older generations are cutting the cord, which is really exciting to see. We haven't talked tons about measurement, but that is so important also, I think, for this transition. And one of the things that, maybe we can pause and talk about that really. One of the things that we did at Foursquare this year that we were really excited for our customers is to continue giving them those insights up front. We send them out to our customers on a weekly basis so they can see the shifts that we're seeing in real world behavior. But also we started to, in a more automated way, look at insights from our measurement platform that will inform audiences, right? So just of the people, if you're using our platform to measure visitation across all your media, we're letting you know what audiences those converters just are naturally falling into. So you can, during the buy or, you know, on your next campaign, take that audience first approach and really understand in a more granular way who your converters are and who your best customers are. Anything else to say around measurement? I know it was a topic for us.
Well, I will try to be very brief here, but I think you did mention something that is very important, which is not just getting the measurement and knowing what happened, but actually using those insights as your starting point to help build your next plan. And so that's something our teams are working. That's something our teams are very it's near and dear to their hearts. And our teams are working very closely with a lot of our big advertisers who are looking to take that more data-driven approach, going back to the opportunity to actually reach more of those unexposed audiences using an incremental reach approach. That is starting with the measurement. That's starting with the results of a previous national network buy, and using that to build your audience segment for the next buy. So taking that data-driven approach actually starts from the measurement and then informs the front-end planning. But it's a mindset shift.
Yeah, I think our last slide here is the need for new metrics. So I couldn't agree more with everything that you guys have just said. I think the punchline on this is that if you're still using CPM and just a measure of straight impressions as your evaluation on TV, you're going to have all those problems that I talked about in the opening conversation. Because what's likely happening is you've got a lot of impressions falling to a pretty small share of households. And so you really have to start thinking about new metrics, cross-screen reach and frequency, measuring to business outcomes. So connecting those digital impressions, those CTV impressions, those linear impressions through to business outcomes. And I have a little analogy that I use that we're all going through this transition. I, before the pandemic, was driving a gas-powered SUV all around town, and of course, I was trying to keep track of my miles per gallon because I was trying to not spend too much on gas. My husband decided that he was going to buy an electric vehicle, and miles per gallon became an outdated metric in our household. I ended up getting rid of my SUV because we're not driving anywhere, and we're really staying pretty close to home. But it ended up that we needed a new metric to evaluate now on how much money we spend in moving ourselves around. So dollars per mile became a metric that we could use, but miles per gallon really doesn't work for us anymore. I believe in TV. In premium video, we're on the precipice of really defining these new metrics, and we're definitely at LiveRamp invested in trying to make this transition happen.
Awesome. So yeah, it's just funny to hear people talk about cars. I sold my car too, Christine, and I used Carvana because it was a Hulu CTV ad I saw. And I did it seamlessly, so it was great. And I wonder if I was measured. So let's go. Thank you, ladies, so much for that conversation. It was great. I'm going to keep this slide up for the audience to see just some next steps and resources, how to reach out to us. Some great resources from LiveRamp, from Foursquare, from Ampersand on this topic. So check them out, reach out to us after this webinar. We are glad to work with you and put all of the sort of the new resources and systems we're putting in place to help you think about TV and addressable TV and an audience first approach. We have just a couple minutes for some questions. So I'm going into, let's see what we had come in. I'll read them off. Let's chime in. So Chris from Alien asks, interested to know the current state for third-party measurement. From our side, we're used to using a separate third-party measurement separate third-party measurement in digital. When we brought our audience data to TV, brands and agencies were asking to do the same audience provider, and it sounds like what he's saying is they're asking to do to basically measure and use that same data provider to create audiences. Do you have best practices related to this? Should third-party data providers be grading their own homework and measure with measurement and attribution? So I definitely have answers for this coming from Foursquare, but I'd love to hear, Christine and Meredith, what you have to say.
I can try to take the objective position because I definitely, so I've powered in different companies over the years. I've powered brand buy-side measurement and sell-side measurement. And the truth is that I think both need to happen. It's actually a super good sign if you see your sell-side partners and your data partners like Ampersand and Foursquare wanting to do measurement, wanting to partner with you to do measurement, because that means they're making their own inventory and their own data better. Like full stop. If they had something to hide, they wouldn't actually be trying to do measurement with you. On the flip side, I do always believe that brands and agencies need their unbiased, unfettered view. You don't want the chicken guarding the hen house, and you really are, sorry, the fox guarding the hen house, the chickens are not enough coffee. So, and you want a comprehensive view as the brand. So if you're trying any other data partners, you obviously want to have a comprehensive view. So I'm a super believer in that both sides need their tools. And so I would really encourage you to, not to deter from partnering with the sell side, but or data partners, but have a view of your own too.
And for the sake of time, I agree with everything Christine said. We, for what it's worth, work with measurement partners in their own respective areas of expertise, whether that's location for footfall, purchase data, website visitation. We have the third-party measurement partnerships in place in order to support the measurement needs and KPIs that our advertisers are looking for. That's the approach we have taken today, but agree with Christine that there is an opportunity for some sell-side measurement to be made available as well.
Yeah. And I would just add that, at Foursquare, we do offer measurement, real world measurement and targeting. We power our measurement through our first party panel data. That is a separate product. We have a much broader sort of data product that we use for targeting audiences that integrates into all the major platforms. We partner with partners like LiveRamp to do a lot of connectivity with those audiences, which I would say is very important to be able to use that same audience across all of your channels, right? All of the TV channels we just talked about, digital, social. And when we're providing measurement results and we're providing audience recommendations, we're not necessarily saying, hey, and you have to buy these on Foursquare. Certainly we'll help you execute on those audiences. We'll help you look at those audiences against your first party data. We'll also help you just learn insights, and you can take that audience learning and use it across everything you do with all of your partners. So I think there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but it was a great question. Another question that just came in, I think this is the last one we'll have time for today. So let's give it a bang up response, ladies. How far along is TV targeting for B2B? How does one target business folks and companies using TV?
Third party, I'll just quick, again, I said quick last time, but there are excellent third-party data providers such as Experian, I'll name them as one, that offer these types of customer segments that are based on a business that apply to a B2B advertiser. I think that is one easy way, if this is new to you, that is one easy way, is tapping into third-party data providers like an Experian who have experience with that level of data input to build those types of audiences, and that is available today for targeting on TV.
And I'll do a plug for LiveRamp has a B2B specialist team. So we have a group of account managers and support team that help you filter through all the different data providers available and know which ones are able to be used in TV and CTV environments. So if you are a LiveRamp customer, it's easy to tap there and look for some specific guidance.
And completely agree. We have a huge audience taxonomy. We have a B2B, B2B is part of our taxonomy. It sits on LiveRamp, it sits across all of our partners. But we also have an audience designer that takes all of our data, and we can get highly customizable in creating, niche B2B audiences as well. So that is definitely a capability and available, and can be used across all of the different TV channels we talked about today. So, and that brings us right on the nose to our time today. So thank you so much, Christine and Meredith, and everyone that joined us today on our webinar to talk bright and early, right after a holiday weekend, about TV, advanced TV, addressable TV. I learned some stuff today, and I'm really looking forward to follow-ups. Please use the resources that we provided, and thanks everyone for taking the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ocean. Thank you, Foursquare.
Thank you.
Thank you, LiveRamp and Ampersand. Bye, Meredith and Christine.